was at noon upon a desolated hillside, soaked with blood, from a diversity of slaughtered animals, when young Actaeon, grandson to the Theban king, called out to all his fellow hunters as they combed the wilderness.
The sun is at the midpoint of his course and sears the earth with bitter heat. Let's call it off for now. Go fetch the nets.
Actaeon's friends obeyed his orders, calling off the hunt. Beneath this mountain slope, there lay a valley thick with pine and cypress called Gargaphia, which was a sanctuary of the virgin goddess, Phoebe. In the deepest part of this retreat, there was a grotto sunk into some trees. A stream of crystal water danced around its boundary along one side, and finally reclined into a pool, which was embraced by banks of grass. And it was here that she, the goddess of the wood, would come to bathe her virgin limbs. And so upon this afternoon, the huntress enters there and hands the nymph who was attendant to her weaponry, her lance, her quiver, and her unstrung bow. Another nymph enfolds her mistress' cloak across her arm. Another pair remove the sandals from her feet. And still another few pour water over Phoebe's naked body, wielding large, capacious urns. And while this daughter of the Titans takes her customary bath, Actaeon, having left the hunt, is tentatively wandering in the unexplored terrain. He unintentionally violates her privacy. At sight of mortal man, the nymphs begin to beat their breasts and fill the wilderness with shrieks, encircling their mistress, guarding her, and yet the goddess towers, head and bust above them all, with colors borrowed from the clouds at dawn. The cheeks of Phoebe blush of blood as she stands fully nude before Actaeon's mortal eyes, and while she wishes she had arrows in her reach, she uses water, flinging it with fierce, avenging force, drenching Actaeon's head and hair. And then, to this, she adds, with dire, foreboding prophecy,
Now go report to all that you have seen the naked goddess. That is, if you can speak.
And that was all she threatened. But where water soaked our hero's head, the goddess conjured up the antlers of a buck that might have lived through many years. She made his neck elongate, gave him pointy ears, replaced his hands with feet, his arms with long legs. She covered him with spotted skin, then finished up her work by adding fear. Autonowe's heroic son takes flight and is himself astonished at the speed with which he runs. And then he sees, upon the glassy surface of a stream, the horns and face, which now are his possession. Woe is me, he tries to say, but nothing like his voice comes out, and yet those are his tears, flooding down features of a face no longer called his own. What can he do? Seek his comfort at the royal palace? Or shall he stay and hide within the wood. His shame prevents his going home, and fear rules out his staying where he is. While standing, almost paralyzed by fear, he turns and sees his pack of hunting dogs, who glare at him with lust for blood. He darts away and is pursued through areas where he had always been pursuer. Poor Actaeon flees the hounds who had for him an absolute obedience. He longs to shout commands. I am Actaeon, heal and recognize your master, but words, too, are disobedient to him. By now the countryside reverberates with barking dogs. The first to fasten slavering forms into his master's form is Melanchites. Next is Theridamas, Heristrophos, clamps a vice of canine teeth upon a shoulder bone, and while these three rein in their master's flight, the other scores of dogs rain down upon him, sinking teeth into his flesh, until no patch of skin remains that is not mauled by dogs. And in all this, their quarry makes a sound which, though it's not a human cry, is not the sound a dying stag would make. And all the hills Actaeon loved so much are filled with it. He's on his knees now, suppliant, like someone praying. Now he turns his face in silence, reaching out into his fellow beasts, beseeching them as if he still had arms. But all his friends who now are watching from the sides incite the dogs for more, and in the meantime look around and shout into the hills for their companion. And he turns his head each time they do, berating him for loafing, missing such a spectacle of blood sport. Oh, if only this were just the case. But he, in fact, is there. Oh, how he wishes he could see his dogs, not feel them jamming teeth into his vitals under false appearances, that he, their loving master, is a stag. And not until his life was ended by the countless wounds was quiver-bearing Phoebe's suit of vengeance satisfied.